The restaurant's name is the Pacific Northwest Best Fish Company. It is located in Richfield, Washington, and is known for their smoked salmon. People come from far away to enjoy their fresh seafood. To maintain their reputation, they are sticklers for cleanliness. To maintain that high level of cleanliness, the owners felt they needed to use powerful cleaning agents. During a routine inspection, the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries consultant pointed out how corrosive and dangerous the chemicals they use for cleaning were to anyone who handled them. She showed the owners the state safety regulations that required businesses to provide personal protective equipment such as goggles, face masks, and gloves for all employees who handled dangerous chemicals. The L&I consultant pointed out that the company must also install emergency eye wash and shower facilities. Kelly Beckwith is the owner.
So as a business owner, I'm very happy that I'm able to provide my employees with personal protection equipment in order for them to do their job safely. When I found out that the regulations required us to add an eye washing station and a body washing facility, I wasn't necessarily reluctant. It was more of a cost issue. Fortunately for us, we did comply with those regulations, and I was very happy to do so because we did have to utilize the eye washing station on a few occasions. And I was grateful that we had it because I'm sure it protected some of my staff from any serious injury.
We'll finish this true story later, but first, let's look at the problem and what you must do to protect yourself and your employees. Chances are you have and use both in your home and business a very corrosive chemical. For instance, you use it almost every time you wash your clothes. It's 3 to 6% sodium hypochlorite, better known as household bleach. In Washington State, there are a significant number of worker compensation claims for eye injuries associated with bleach. If you work with chemicals or are responsible for those who have to work in any capacity with chemicals, there are things you need to look for. Keep in mind that chemicals you've always considered safe might, in fact, be very dangerous. Remind yourself often of the common household bleach. The best way to determine whether chemicals in the workplace require emergency washing facilities is by referring to the safety data sheets. Look for specific references to the material being corrosive, a strong irritant, or a toxic chemical that is absorbed through the skin or eyes. If your employees are exposed to that kind of material, then you need to provide an emergency eye washing facility. And depending on the chemical, and in some circumstances, you may also be required to provide an emergency shower. A substance is defined as corrosive if upon contact it causes destruction of living tissue by chemical action. This includes acids with a pH of 2.5 or below, or caustics with a pH of 11.0 or above. pH information is usually found in the safety data sheet. Look for specific references in the safety data sheets concerning the substance, such as corrosive to the eyes, or it may cause permanent eye damage if not treated, or do not get in eyes, eye wash required. Or the safety data sheet may say the substance may cause burns to the skin and eyes, or it may cause severe eye irritation, or may be toxic and absorbed through the skin or eyes. If the safety data sheet says this or anything like this, and employees use or are exposed to them in any way, an emergency washing facility must be provided. It's easy to understand how a company who processes and stores chemicals, or one who uses large amounts of chemicals as part of their manufacturing process, or even a facility that ships or transports large tanks of chemicals, it's easy to understand why they would need an emergency washing facility. But a small restaurant, motel, or grocery store who uses just ordinary household chemicals and cleaners, such as bleach, to help keep their business clean and healthy, do they need to provide an emergency washing facility? A common misconception is that if your company or office or lab is very small, with only 1 or 2 employees who are only infrequently exposed to the dangerous material, then you don't need to provide an emergency washing facility. That is false. You do need to provide one. And in addition, you need to provide proper personal protective equipment, or PPE. And you also need to provide adequate training in the use of the washing facility and the PPE. And you need to provide supervision to ensure that every employee that potentially would need to use the emergency washing facility has been trained on using it recently. Your employees need to know what proper personal protective equipment to wear and where it is kept. You need to make sure he or she does in fact wear it. You should keep a log of the training and consider appropriate corrective action when employees don't follow your policy on when PPE is required. We all have at times the belief that it can't happen to us. I'm careful. I know what to do. I won't splash dangerous chemicals into my face. I'll take the time to do things right. And I hire only those employees who are careful. It just won't happen to me or to my employees. But sometimes it does. Accidents happen, even when the employee does exactly as he was instructed, even when he was wearing all the PPE he was told to wear and given to wear. Sometimes accidents happen even when the victim does absolutely nothing wrong. His name is Anthony White. Tony lost his eyesight in 2008 when caustic soda splashed into his eyes. Tony was trained by his company. They told him that he should wear a face shield and a helmet while applying these chemicals. Tony was following that instruction. The chemicals were in a white 5-gallon bucket with no lid. He was carrying them from the tank that stores the chemicals to the workplace. He tripped, and when he fell, the bucket hit the ground. His helmet came off his head, and the chemicals splashed in his face. With Mr. White are his attorneys Jeffrey Campeach and Naomi Fisea.
The chemical company and the employer both were ignorant of the requirements of OSHA, WSHA, National Institute of Health Safety, and ANSI, American National Standards Institute. The only applicable regulations for the use of this kind of chemical in the country all require that the worker wear goggles. If Tony had been wearing this, whether he fell or not, he would not have been blinded.
Well, I thought I was being safe
Because?
because that's what I was actually trained to do. I mean, I never knew about any goggles. And Jeff is right. I mean, if I had those goggles and whether I fell or not, I know I would still have my sight.
When there is the potential for an employee's eyes or major portions of the body to contact corrosives, strong irritants, or toxic chemicals, the employer must provide emergency washing facilities. Did you notice we said when there is the potential for an employee's and or an employee could be exposed? The employer must not wait until there is a history of exposure accidents before installing the emergency washing facility. It must be installed, even if there is only a potential for accidental exposure. The proper protective equipment, or PPE, may include eye goggles. Remember, the proper eye goggles alone would have protected Tony's eyes, and he would still be able to see the smiling faces of his children today. A face shield may also be required to protect the face, even when goggles are worn. Other PPE that may be required includes gloves, aprons, boots, and respirators. They must fit the employee, be kept clean and repaired, and the employee must be trained in their proper use. Contact your Washington State Department of Labor and Industries representative for further help in making sure your plans for emergency wash facilities are compliant. Let's return to the Pacific Northwest Best Fish Company. The owners complied with the regulations that they provide PPE for their employees and an emergency eye wash and shower facilities. Not long afterwards, everyone was glad they did. Mr. Foster credits the emergency eye wash for saving his eyesight. In Jake's accident, adequate eye protection was available, but Jake hadn't taken the time to put it on. He was not trying to be belligerent. The employer said he was a very good employee, but at times rushed too much. Jake has one more piece of advice for you to remember.
What I would tell people that are reluctant to wear their PPE is that, you may get away with it 100 times, but the one time that something happens and you're not wearing it, it's a difference between 2 seconds and 10 seconds whether or not those injuries will last a lifetime. So if you're reluctant, just take an extra second, think about it, wear it. You're gonna get the job done in the same amount of time. You're better off wearing your PPE than not.
Jake was fortunate. He learned the importance of wearing the proper PPE without losing his eyesight. Tony wasn't so lucky. He must now live the rest of his life in the dark.
What I miss is my own freedom of me doing things on my own and not having to depend on the cane or other people helping me. I miss the excitement of seeing things and doing things for myself. Most things I miss playing with my kids and taking them for walks and in the park. And now I'm sitting alone, I kind of think about fishing when I was a kid. That's the only thing I can think about, fishing as a kid and fishing with my kids. I like to hand that back down to them, but sitting alone makes me feel alone. I don't like sitting alone. Most time I do sit alone, so I gotta fantasize my mind of something I used to do and feel comfortable doing and have fun of doing. I can't picture myself doing something else that I can't see. So being in that stage of mind is pretty hard to accept. When sitting alone, I feel lonely. I feel like I'm all alone. I feel like I'm all alone. What I miss is my own freedom of me doing things on my own and not having to depend on the cane or other people helping me.